What's up, everybody? And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the technique from the fours from the World Champs, going over what I think helped the USA crew win, and going over the technique of some of the other crews and what people were doing well, in my opinion, and what other crews could be doing better, but obviously still went pretty quick. And then, we'll be going over what I think the USA four did really, really well that like no one else was doing that won them the race, and then I'll be going over the drill that you can do to try and bring on that into your stroke. So, cool. So, I guess we're here. The British fours here, so we might as well cover them first. The first thing that they do really well, and I think a lot of British crews do well, and I guess I'm biased, but I'd say I'm more biased to Scotland rather than Great Britain, but I'm not going to get into the politics of all that shit. But anyways, like when people say I'm biased against GB, like I know people in the team, but I have my problems with them and stuff like that, but I don't really like, I'm Scottish, I'm not British. So like, I don't really care apart from like when I know the people and like I want them to have good races and stuff. But anyways, I think the technique of the British style is the best technique as well in the world. I'm trying to be unbiased here because I think I am. Holy shit, get to the point. The way I really like their catches. So I would say this is, relatively kind of standard like British style of like squared, hands pretty low on the way going forward, as you guys hear me talk about all the time. Exciting new discovery with this pen, by the way. I realize you can now type stuff in here, so you can say catch. Isn't that great? Rather than me like typing it out. They have their hands low on the way going forward, so they can then square here, as you can see. Yeah, both sides doing that well. And this is, with squaring, you don't have to do it very, very early when you're up at rate. I think the reason you really want to exaggerate squaring early at a low rate is because when you go up to high rate, you're always going to square later. So just squaring very early and drilling that into your technique is a good way to be able to do this at a high rate. And all you're really looking for at a high rate is a moment where you are squared and you're sliding forward. So you can see here this crew, okay, bow side's a little bit feathered there, but they have probably just a few inches there. I'd even say bow side could square tad earlier, but stroke side get onto the square there. And then they have that moment where they're just squared here, and all they need to do is float forward and stay still. There doesn't have to be any kind of last minute, twisting of the forearms to turn the blade square, the blade square, and all that allows them to do is just float forward and be nice and still going into the front. The catch timing is so important. Of as soon as you're at full slide, you lift the blade, and if you leave that like to the last minute, it just makes getting the catch right so hard. So you want to prepare as best as possible. The way I think about the catch is like you're preparing to go on holiday and you're packing your bags. You don't want to have a last minute rush or a last minute scramble. Where's my passport? Where's the suitcase? Where are my friggin' goggles? And you don't need to pack so early that it's like a week before you fly. You just want to pack with enough time so that you can chill out right before you get to the airport. You know where everything is. There's no stress. So the same idea with a catch. You want to be squared so you can just have that moment where you can relax there, right on the front, still there. It's just chilled, and all you need to do is float going into the front. So what I would say, this crew, it looked like they went off pretty aggressive and they kind of faded. So maybe that was part of their strategy. I guess they were on an outside lane here, so they were going for it. I would say maybe just looked a bit tenser than usual, but sometimes when you're really going for it, it's hard to stay tense because you can just see maybe a bit too much backsplash there, which would suggest just being a tiny bit tense. But overall, I really like that placement. So on the way going forward, they lift, they wait. They've not shot back at all. Like look, they're full slide here. The blade's in. They've not shot back. They've not driven back. They've not driven back. They've not lost any length here. And then they're connected. They've got the blade sunk, locked into the water here, and they can really leverage themselves past that point where they've got the oars sunken in. Yeah, I think there was a few bronze medalists from the 8 last year. I think this crew is doubling up. I can't remember for the 8, but I think quite a few people in the 4s were doubling up in the 8. But the other notable technique I thought was New Zealand. Where's that clip? Come on. There we go. I'm getting like a cramp in my hand right now. Cool. So what I thought they did really well was their timing. I don't know how else to break that down. I just thought they looked really nice and in time, really still at the back as well. Like they'd come through the finish nicely. You can see they draw through, and once they draw through, there's very little movement with the upper body. I just thought it looked really nice and simple and clean. Just no nonsense rowing. So just row in time, and then you can do that. One thing when we're coaching is a kind of good sort of point to get together when you're trying to improve timing is you can try and get your timing on the drive, obviously, but a really controllable place that you can improve your timing is on the recovery. So very, very simple. Like I think a really good point to work on it is the finish. So just making sure everybody keeps the bodies back until the arms go away first. And once the arms are away first, you have that body rock forward. So that's a really good point. It's just really working as a crew, that making sure when you come through the finish, everybody holds their chest still and the arms go away first. And then another one as well that we quite like is when everybody rocks forward, thinking about getting weight onto the foot plate. Think about feeling, all four. It's not like, kind of, one goes forward, then the next. It's kind of feeling that whole crew shift forward together is a really good point to work on timing. And if you get those points right on the recovery, what often happens, because our body likes patterns, on the way back, on the drive, you're going to be much more likely to open with the back and then draw through with the arms. So if you think about, if you're in time here going forward, when you come back, your bodies are going to be more in time drawing through. And then likewise, when you rock forward together, when you drive back, your body's going to be so much more likely to be in time. So you can kind of have that emphasis of the arms in together and arms away together. And then you can also have that emphasis of bodies over together, and then bodies back together, and feeling that swing together. So two points that you can focus on that help bring in timing into your stroke. And then look, just do a bunch of mileage together. But a lot of time, we had a few masters, quite a few of our masters racing at World Masters just there, and we were doing some composites, which was cool for the first time in 4s anyways. And that was kind of something that we like to emphasize, is that timing there. So, and what video? It's all in this clip. Right, USA. Let's look at this crew. Cool. So, hold on. So, onto this crew, onto the US4. So, to me, like, they just start looking at the things that they do kind of like in theory and correctly. Like, it looked like sometimes, the bodies would be leaning to different angles. Like bow seat has a bit of a lean out to the left. 3 seat here is kind of leaning into the rigger. 2 seat looks a bit central. Stroke seat, the kind of right shoulders down, which is normally the other way. This isn't technically wrong, but just sometimes why you wouldn't want that is because obviously balance, but more so power application. Like if you were to think about doing a power clean in the gym or a deadlift, the most effective way for you to do that is through that nice straight up and down plane. So anytime you kind of lean one way or the other, you're just not going to be using your trunk effectively to apply force. The other thing, it just looked like there's kind of a bit of extra movement. It was actually mainly from stroke, but that being said, she also does get like a really, really long stroke here, and she holds that long. Now, if you're to row like stroke seat, what I would suggest is try and get that leaning forward position early. But where a lot of masters rowers will go wrong is they'll really, really reach for that position, but they won't be strong enough to hold that length and hang from this position. Because you can see stroke seat, she's really reaching for it. The shoulder is kind of like extended, and normally what happens, especially when people aren't strong enough to do this, is they go right there. As soon as they get that load there, as soon as they get connected there, their body goes, whoa, I don't like this like extended position, let me correct. And then people open their backs before they push with their hips. So this is the thing with, I think, a lot of techniques of elite crews is they have the strength, they also have the skill to be able to place properly when they're having extra body movement. And it's just something that I don't advise amateurs do, because it can cause injury. It can be less efficient if you aren't strong enough yet to do it. And also you can get away with this sort of technique where there is the lunge as well, where the chest sort of dips down and you kind of lunge onto the stern a little bit, because in a 4 it's so much longer and it's a much bigger boat. So when you dip a tiny bit with your chest, you're not really going to disrupt the run of the stern. If you're in a single, pair, or double, I'd really recommend not doing that, because you're just going to put a bit of weight onto the stern. But look, the pro to this is, especially stroke seat, gets like insane length at the front here. I think I had another clip of these guys, which I pulled off US Rowing's Instagram. Hold on, I'm going to go look up the guy's name I got it from this guy's Instagram, SC Pictures. I'm trying to be better at any time I use footage to give credit. So this is from World Rowing. This is from SC Pictures. But looking at the length that, especially stroke seat gets into there, like crazy, crazy length. Almost that outside hand looks almost, past the stern. So really, really long here, and patient as well to push. And then when they're connected, they don't immediately open the back. They can hold this extended position and push for long here. So good example. And like this comes to the kind of theme of the crew of what they do well as a 4. They row really long, and then they put the blade in, and there's no, similar to the British crew, there's no rush. They put the blade in, they're staying here. They go, okay, right, now I'm connected, and it's their leg drive. It's like how they hammer the legs down that makes them go quick. Like if we zoom out to the side-by-side shots, just looking at the leg drive of this crew and how they hammer the legs down with that length and with that front end push, to me, they just stood out as the crew that had the most power on the leg drive. So they also, to the second point, they generated so much acceleration with the legs that they didn't need to really add that much acceleration onto the back. But at the same time, they weren't rushing forward and trying to like cut the finish off early to get onto the next stroke. So I really liked the way that they oh shit. There was a good leg drive here. The knees really go down together as a crew. Like I'd like to see what their force curves looked like as a 4, but knees down together, and then just holding it through here. But there's no rush to jump onto the next stroke, which is where a lot of crews will go wrong. they'll get to here and they go right. I need to get up to 40, and they'll pop the hands out. The bows will sink down. They do a nice job of just holding on to it and making sure that bow stays out of the water for a little bit longer as they suspend through the back. So yeah, the drill that you can do to work on this is probably done it before. Legs only. I stole this from YouTube. You've probably done something like this before. If you want to make this drill easier, I know it's actually a pretty hard drill to do. First off, try it, and if it feels like shit, keep trying it as long as it's safe to do so. The whole point in drills is not to do the drill well, it's to have a positive impact when you go back into normal rowing. So this can push your skill level, and you can put up with doing it squared, then please persist, because it's such a good drill. But if you want to make it easier, that's totally fine as well. Just do it with the blades feathered rather than squared. And normally you don't want to do this, but you can keep the blades dragging along the water just to get that stability. 2 points to emphasize here when you're doing this drill. Don't try and hammer the legs at the front at that initial point. You know, when you're in this stretch position here, if we were to get a bird's eye view of the boat, that was a bendy boat. I can't draw a straight line today. There we go. That's straight-ish. Your oars are at this angle when you're at the catch. And if you apply a lot of force, so much force is going to... Oh, I cannot draw straight today. So much force is going to go that way and not that way. So don't push hard. You just want to feel a bit of connection there. Squeeze the legs. And then it's kind of here when you get to about halfway down that you really start to want to hammer the legs. Then... the other point I want you to emphasize is how slow, when you're moving forward, in these last few inches of the recovery here, really, really exaggerate how slow you go. So many people go, oh shit. They go, oh, because the boat's unstable. Oh my God, get me out of here. What I really want you to do is practice being still. Because if you go quick in like this, you know, all your momentum is going to the front, and then you have to change direction. And what that does is it just kicks the stern, makes it hard to get grip. So you want to be slow in here so that you're able to get connected smoothly without jumping on the stern too much. And then you can push from there. But if you can take away one thing from this drill, the way I want you to try it is slow it down. Like really, really exaggerate how comfortable you can be just slowing, moving into this unstable position here when the boat's slow, when everything's trickier, when everything's more unstable. So yeah, if you like this video, like the video and subscribe, and cheers.